In preparation for our trip out east, I'm modifying the back of the van. We have a Ford Tansit 350 and taken the back row seats out. It's a 15 passenger, so I took 4 out, so now we have room for 11. In preparation for our trip out east, I'm modifying the back of the van. We have a Ford Tansit 350 and taken the back row seats out. It's a 15 passenger, so I took 4 out, so now we have room for 11, which is more than what we need. But what we're really lacking back here is any kind of storage. So I've started with just building a platform and got everything flat, leveled out. And on the right side over here, I've wired up an outlet for the ARB 50-quart fridge, and I have a slide for that that'll pull out. So my goal is on this side to build some sort of compartment, maybe kind of like an open box with a top and a shelf. And we have some storage bins that will fit in there. And we need room for 6, and then I picture a shelf up here for soft kinds of things like duffel bags, tents, things like that. So it's looking like some rain, but we're gonna go ahead and get started. And I've got my lumber here, have a rough idea in my head, but we'll see, we'll go from there. Here's where we are so far. I've mounted the outermost legs to each side. You see that? And I used the existing holes where the seat belt bracket was. I just had to replace the bolt. The seat belt bolt was not long enough. So I'll put those specs in the description of the video as well. But that's working out great. I was going to use one down for the bottom too, but I mean, just with the one cinched up, it's going to be plenty of support. The idea is this is something that I can take out after the trip and yet be able to store it and then put it back together if we're going to go on another long trip. So you can see I've got the ARB fridge on the right side on the slide, and it's all the way over next to the bottle jack. I want to make sure, you know, I have things that are accessible, and then I'm going to wire where the socket's going to be mounted back here. And then the idea here is to use these heavy-duty Orbis tubs for our food and sundries and things like that. I've got it set up right now 3 high, and I can do side by side. So I could do 6 high, and then we even have some room behind to store some other things. I'd put like a ledge or a rail in the back so they don't slide back. The seats slant back a little bit, so I really don't have all that vertical space. So anyway, I'm gonna keep working with this and see what I come up with. Here's the progress so far. I have the shelving unit all framed in and the top fitted, and I'm considering doing something in this space right here, kind of a cubby box. I'm not sure yet, I haven't got that figured out, but right now it's sturdy, and the only anchor point actually to the van is one bolt here, and then on this side the one bolt there. And again, those holes, those threaded holes, are from the seat belts that I removed when I took out the back row. So with that vertical piece mounted, I then joined up the legs in the back, which are resting on the wheel wells back there, and those are vertically plumb. And then I tied in a back rail that runs exactly parallel to the front rail, and then I tied in 2 perpendicular pieces. These are just 1x2s, tied it into the front, and then also here on the bottom. You can see it better over here. There you go. And those are just screwed with 1 screw, and that gives it plenty of support. For the top, because I wanted this to be modular, to be able to be taken apart and not have to store one big contraption, which I've done before when I had the Nissan van. That was one ginormous box, and it just took up so much space in my garage, and it was a bear to handle. I wanted this to be able to come apart but yet be able to put back together. So I opted for one rectangular piece kind of in the center. You can see the split there and here, and that fills up most. And again, I'm just working with scrap wood that I already had. I could have bought, a new sheet and cut it out. And then I added a wing onto the right and then onto the left. And I'm just using a circular saw and a jigsaw, and I just, scribed that a line here because it's wider in the back than it is in the front. And then over here, this is even a different profile. It's narrower up here. This is like 9 inches, and then it's maybe 14, maybe 11 in the back. So it goes there. So I've got room on the sides. It's not a perfect fit, but it's great. So now I'm going to add a kind of a back rail or a face piece that'll come up maybe, I don't know, 5 inches, 6 inches to keep things from shifting forward. And I'll do the same in the front right here. And that'll all look really good. It'll look finished off. Again, on top, we're only going to put soft things. Sleeping bags, rolled tent, sleeping mats, duffel bags. Nothing that's going to be hard or heavy. And it's just kind of a way to keep things in place. And then I've kind of mapped out, I'm going to put some stopper rails here and then on the side. So I don't want the boxes to shift over against the fridge and bind things up, and they stack nice and tightly, so I'm not really worried about the top 2, but the bottom one, if I can keep it from shifting toward the back of the van and to the side, that'll be good. And I want them all the way back against that rail. That'll leave me some of this intake vent here. This circulates air from the back. So I want to be sure I'm not, blocking the entire van. I'm blocking a good portion of it, but I want to make sure some of it can get to the air, or the air can get to it. So that's where we are. A few more steps, and then I'll take it out, sand everything up, give it a coat of paint or 2, and then we'll put it back in. So I have really 3 days before we leave, so I have a lot to do. Wrapped up the second day working on the storage area, and I think I have it where I'm going to keep it, at least for this trip. I had plans of painting it, and it's just too close to departure day. That means I would have to take it all out, prime it, paint it, maybe a second coat, let it all dry really good, and then put it all back in. So my wife actually suggested paint it when we get back, paint it when we take it out, and I'm like, that's a great idea. So I think we'll just leave it like this. So let's see, I added the cubby above the fridge, hung the fire extinguisher, put some stoppers for the tubs so they don't slide sideways or forward. And then up here, I added on a lip on the back. That way things don't slide forward and hit people in the head. And then a little bit of a lower lip here to keep things sliding back toward the door. So yeah, that's kind of where we are. Let me go ahead and pull out this fridge. So we've got that, and when I open the lid, it goes up just about all the way. It doesn't stay by itself. I kind of sacrificed that so that I could have that shelf. So anyway, that's where we are. Shelving system. We just took out the back row of 4 seats and built this structure to kind of hold everything in place. Otherwise, it would just be a big cargo area and things would shift and tumble and tip over. So I used these gray plastic Orbis bins as our measuring system to know how big to make this area. So I knew we needed 6. Nancy's labeled them all with the kind of food. So snacks, this is like sauces, cooking oils, and hot sauce, stuff like that. We have one for lunch, breakfast, other, and then the dinner one's already out. We're looking through it for tonight. And then over here is our refrigerator. We wired, let me see if I can pull this out. Excuse me. There we go. So I wired from the battery a 12-volt outlet, and we've got our fridge on the slide. And then it opens up, keeps everything cool. That way we don't need to mess with ice and worry about draining and buying ice on the road. Everything just stays nice and cool. And then above the refrigerator, we have this extra space, so I rigged up this shelf. It kind of looks like it's floating, but it's hanging, supported. And this is where we put our tents, our sleeping bags, our portable chairs, things like that. And then up on top is just an additional shelf where we put our duffel bags, camera tripod, first aid kit, emergency roadside kit, things like that. So everything's working out pretty well here. I couldn't find anything online that already made up plans, so we just kind of rigged this up as we went, and so far it's pretty good. When I get home, we'll take it out, take it apart, label the pieces, probably paint it, then I'll be able to store it in the garage until the next big road trip, and should be able just to put it back in the reverse order.